If you break down on a UK motorway this month and you don't know the new rules, you could be putting your life in danger without even realizing it. Every single driver in the UK needs to hear this before their next motorway journey, because July 2026 has brought real changes to how smart motorways operate, how emergency breakdowns are handled, and what happens if you get it wrong. Stick with me for the next few minutes because this could genuinely save your life or someone else's. Let's start with the basics, because a lot of drivers still don't fully understand what a smart motorway actually is. Across England, there are roughly 375 miles of motorway that fall under this category, covering about 10% of the entire motorway network. That includes major stretches of the M25, the M6 through Birmingham, the M1 between Sheffield and Leeds, and the M62 across the Pennines. These motorways use technology instead of a permanent hard shoulder to manage traffic, and that single design choice is what has caused years of controversy, safety campaigns, and now fresh changes to the rules drivers need to follow. There are 3 types of smart motorway still in operation, and knowing the difference matters more than you think. The first is the controlled motorway, which keeps a permanent hard shoulder at all times, but uses variable speed limits displayed on the overhead gantries. This is the least controversial type, because if you break down, you still have somewhere safe to pull in. The second type is the dynamic hard shoulder motorway, where the hard shoulder only opens up as a running lane during busy periods. When it's closed, it functions as a normal hard shoulder for emergencies. The third, and by far the most talked about, is all-lane running, often shortened to ALR. On these stretches, the hard shoulder has been permanently converted into a live traffic lane. There is no hard shoulder at all. Instead, drivers rely entirely on emergency refuge areas, known as ERAs, which are the orange surfaced laybys you'll see spaced out along the route. Now here's where it gets serious. All lane running motorways have faced years of criticism because of how dangerous they can be if something goes wrong. Government figures tied to these motorways show a breakdown on an all-lane running section carries roughly 3 times the danger compared to a conventional motorway with a hard shoulder. That statistic alone is why the government made the decision back in 2023 to stop building any new all-lane running motorways. But the ones already built are still operating today, and that's exactly why the July 2026 changes matter so much. The existing network isn't going anywhere, so the government's approach has shifted toward making the current system safer rather than removing it entirely. So what's actually changed? The biggest update drivers need to understand is around emergency refuge areas. For years, these refuge areas were spaced up to 1.5 miles apart on all lane running sections. Picture that for a second. If your car breaks down in the middle lane and the nearest refuge area is 1.5 miles away, you could be looking at 2 to 3 minutes of driving a crippled vehicle through live traffic before reaching safety. Compare that to a traditional hard shoulder, where you can pull over in 10 to 20 seconds. Safety campaigners have been furious about this gap for years, and now the spacing is finally being tightened. National Highways has committed to reducing the distance between refuge areas to 3/4 of a mile wherever it's physically feasible, with a hard maximum of 1 mile on any upgraded stretch. On top of that, 10 additional refuge areas are being built specifically on the M25, which has recorded a higher than average rate of breakdowns compared to other smart motorway sections. The second major change involves the technology that detects stopped vehicles. If you've never heard of stopped vehicle detection, or SVD, this is the radar-based system that automatically scans the carriageway for vehicles that have come to a stop in a live lane. As of this year, SVD coverage now extends across more than 95% of all lane running sections nationwide. When the system picks up a stationary vehicle, it can trigger a lane closure on the overhead gantry within approximately 20 seconds. That's a massive improvement from relying purely on CCTV operators manually spotting an incident, which could sometimes take several minutes. But, and this is important, National Highways and the RAC are both clear that this technology is a backup, not a guarantee. You should never assume the system has detected you. Always call for help yourself the moment you're safely able to. Now let's talk about the Red X, because this is where a huge number of drivers get caught out and lose their license points without even realizing what they did wrong. A Red X displayed on the overhead gantry means that lane is closed, full stop. It might be closed because of a broken down vehicle, debris, an accident, or ongoing roadworks. As of the July 2026 update, ignoring a Red X carries a fixed penalty of 100 pounds and 6 penalty points, an increase from the previous 3-point penalty. And here's the part that catches people off guard. This is enforced entirely automatically, 24 hours a day, through Haddock's 3 camera systems. There's no human reviewing footage to decide whether to let you off. If the camera catches you in a Red X lane, the penalty notice is generated immediately. For new drivers who passed their test within the last 2 years, 6 points is enough to have your license revoked entirely, regardless of any other circumstances. So if you take away nothing else from this video, take away this: never ever drive in a lane marked with a Red X, even if it looks completely clear ahead of you. Let's move on to what you actually do if you break down on a smart motorway under these new rules, because the procedure has been clarified and drivers need to know it step by step. The moment you notice a problem with your vehicle, your first priority is reaching an emergency refuge area if you possibly can. These are marked with blue signs showing the SOS telephone symbol, and the surface is painted orange so they stand out clearly from the main carriageway. Most modern satellite navigation systems will also show you the next refuge area along your route, so it's worth glancing at your screen the moment something feels wrong with the car. If you can safely reach one of these refuge areas, pull in, switch on your hazard lights immediately, and then use the SOS phone located in the refuge area to contact the Regional Control Center. This connects you directly to the team who can close the lane behind you and dispatch a traffic officer. But what if you can't reach a refuge area in time? This is the scenario that scares people the most, and honestly, it should be taken seriously. If your vehicle can't make it to an ERA, the instruction is to get as far left as possible using any available verge or the extreme left edge of the near side lane and switch on your hazards straight away. If it is safe to do so, exit the vehicle through the passenger side door, the side away from live traffic, and move behind the safety barrier if there is one. Do not stand behind your car, and do not attempt to flag down other vehicles or wave anyone down. Once you're in a safe position, call 999 or use the National Highways emergency number if you have it saved, and clearly explain your location using the marker posts along the motorway edge. If for any reason you cannot safely exit the vehicle, the guidance is to stay inside with your seatbelt fastened and call for help immediately rather than risk stepping into a live lane. One detail that trips a lot of people up is what to do with pets if you break down. The advice is to leave animals inside the vehicle. It sounds counterintuitive, but a frightened pet running loose near live traffic creates an entirely new danger, both for the animal and for you if you try to chase after it. Beyond the breakdown procedure itself, there are a couple of wider changes worth knowing about if you're driving in the UK from July 2026 onward. Every new car submitted for type approval from the 1st of July this year must now include intelligent speed assistance as standard. In practice, most major manufacturers already had this fitted, so the change mainly affects smaller manufacturers who hadn't caught up yet. If you're buying a brand new car from this point forward, expect this system to be built in. It gently prompts or resists when you exceed the speed limit, but importantly, it can be manually overridden by the driver, and on most systems, it resets back to active every time you start a new journey. It won't physically stop you from speeding, but it's designed to nudge your behavior in the moment. There's also been continued expansion of average speed camera networks across trunk roads and motorway roadwork zones, alongside mobile phone detection cameras that are now operating at 14 fixed locations across England and Wales. These use overhead AI cameras to detect handheld phone use without any human reviewing the footage before a penalty notice goes out, and they can simultaneously catch seatbelt violations from the exact same camera pass. That's 2 separate fixed penalty notices from one single trip under one gantry. So if you've got a habit of glancing at your phone at a red light or on a slow-moving motorway, this is the year that habit catches up with you. Stepping back, what does all of this actually mean for the average driver in the UK right now? It means the smart motorway network isn't disappearing, and it isn't going back to having permanent hard shoulders everywhere. What's happening instead is a slow, deliberate effort to patch the safety gaps that campaigners, coroners, and government committees have been raising for years. Refuge areas closer together, faster detection technology, harsher penalties for ignoring warning signs, and clearer public guidance on exactly what to do in an emergency. None of that removes risk entirely, and public confidence in these motorways is still genuinely low, with a significant portion of drivers reporting real anxiety about all lane running sections. But knowing the rules, knowing where your nearest refuge area is at any given moment, and knowing exactly what steps to take the second something goes wrong with your car, that's the difference between a stressful 5 minutes and a genuinely dangerous situation. So here's my advice before you next drive on a motorway like the M25, the M6, the M1, or the M62. Get familiar with how your sat-nav displays upcoming refuge areas. Keep your eyes on the gantries at all times, not just for speed limits, but for that red X. And if your car ever starts acting up on one of these stretches, don't wait. Don't try to nurse it along, hoping you'll make it to the next junction. Head for the nearest ERA the moment you notice something wrong. If this video helped clear up exactly what's changed and what you need to do differently, that's exactly why I make this content, to keep you and every other driver on the road safer and better informed. If you found this useful, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next update, because these rules keep evolving and I'll keep breaking them down for you in plain English. Drop a comment if you've ever had to use an emergency refuge area yourself. I'd love to hear how it went. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe to my channel so you never miss an update like this again.